G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark, and my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. If you haven't been on the channel before, welcome. It's great to have you here, and if you're a regular visitor to the show, thank you very much for coming back. I look forward to reading all of your comments on this particular video. G'day everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing all well out there. We're getting close to the end of 2023, so I thought it was time to put together a series of videos sharing with you my rugby players of the year. And I say players plural because I'm going to make 4 separate videos. One is going to be about the rugby player of the year in the forwards, rugby player of the year in the backs, rugby player of the year substitute forward, and rugby player of the year substitute back. So you can look forward to 4 videos coming out in quick succession. In today's video, I'm going to focus on the rugby player of the year in the forwards, and what I've done is I've put together 10 nominees of rugby players from different nations who represented their country at the Rugby World Cup this year, and I'm going to go through that list and tell you why I think those people should be on my list. Now, a couple of criteria I've put together for this list is, first of all, their individual performance at the Rugby World Cup, and secondly, their contribution to their nation, to their country and their team. I think that's a very important criteria to throw in there as well. So there we go. This is the first one. We're going to be talking about forwards. So let's go and have a look at who I've selected as my nominees for this year's Rugby Player of the Year in the forwards. So I've come up with 10 forwards for my list of the forward of the year, and let's start off by having a look at those in no particular order. The first one on my list is Pieter-Steph du Toit from South Africa, and Pieter-Steph du Toit, I think, had a fantastic year this year in his rugby career. He had a fantastic Rugby World Cup. He was instrumental in his own individual performance, and he was also a fantastic contributor to his team. And I think he did extremely well throughout the year. If you look at even the Rugby Championship games he played against the All Blacks, he was absolutely magnificent in those games. And of course he gave Geordie Barrett a bit of a hard time in that final against the All Blacks at the Rugby World Cup. So Pieter-Steph du Toit makes my list without a shadow of the doubt. Next up is Sam Whitelock from the New Zealand All Blacks. And I think Whitelock proved this year again, not only is he a longevity player in the game, but he's also an outstanding lock. And we saw him in a little bit of a different situation this year, where he came off the bench a couple of times for the All Blacks, a role that he wasn't used to, but adapted to very well. And the All Blacks lost absolutely nothing from Sam Whitelock this year. And what a contributor he's been to World Rugby and to the All Black Rugby over the many, many years that he's played for the team. So he's definitely on my list. Next up is the World Rugby Player of the Year, Ardie Savea from New Zealand. Again, an outstanding performance at the Rugby World Cup. Couldn't quite help his team get over the finish line. But what we saw from Savea this year was another growth in his maturity as a player and also as a leader. And I think that's a particular reason why he makes my list of top 10 forwards for this year. And Savea really grew as a man off the field of play as well as on the field of play, and we saw when he was captain of the All Blacks this year, he really made a difference, and I think the team respected him a lot when he was in that role as captain. Next up on my list of the forwards that I've nominated for Rugby Player of the Year this year for forwards is Caelan Doris from Ireland. I think he had an outstanding Rugby World Cup, a huge contributor to that forward pack of Ireland. And of course, there's probably many of you out there that think there should be some other Irish forwards on my list, and you're probably right. But this was a very difficult task to keep it to 10 particular players for my nomination. So there you go, Caelan Doris has made my list of the top 10 nominated forwards for Rugby Player of the Year this year. Now moving down my list, the next one on my list is Ben Earl from England. I think Ben Earl had a fantastic Rugby World Cup this year. In those games against both South Africa and Argentina, he was outstanding. I think his level of play was fantastic from an individual point of view, but his contribution to that English team was very, very good as well. So I think Ben Earl definitely deserves to be on this list of top 10 forwards being considered for Rugby Player of 2023 in the forwards. Next up on my list, I've got 2 Frenchmen. The first one is Cameron Woki. I really enjoyed his play throughout the Rugby World Cup. He was outstanding in the games that he played for France. He was great in the set piece places, but he was also very, very good in the loose. And if you watch some of those France games, he was very much athletic around the field. He got to the breakdowns very, very early for a man of his size, and he made a contribution, a fantastic contribution, I thought, to the French team throughout the Rugby World Cup. So Cameron Woki definitely on my list. Next up, Gregory Aldrit from France as well, another outstanding rugby player, and this guy is going to be someone to watch over the next few years. He's a really outstanding number 8, but he can also play as a flanker, and I think he's really, really talented. So with a little bit more experience, I think Gregory Aldrit is going to become one of the superstars in world rugby, that's for sure. But he's definitely made my list this year for Rugby Player of the Year in the forwards, and couldn't go past him. Next on my list is that giant of a beast from Tonga, that's Ben Tamawhenua, and Ben was outstanding at this year's Rugby World Cup, both from an individual playing perspective, but also his contribution to his team, to his nation, to his country in Tonga. I thought Ben played outstandingly well. He scored a couple of magnificent tries, of course, and if you replay some of those tries that Ben scored, couple of meters out from the line, coming at you like a steam train, there's nothing in this world that's going to stop Ben Tamawhenua from scoring a try. But I think his contribution, the crowds of France loved him as well. He was on that pitch for most of the games, and carrying that huge frame around, being athletic for a man of his size, but getting involved and doing some enormous work for that Tongan pack. So I really enjoyed Ben Tamawhenua's contribution to this year's Rugby World Cup, and that's why he's on my list. Now, next up from Samoa, we have Theo McFarlane. I really like this guy. I was very impressed with him at this year's Rugby World Cup, and unfortunately Samoa weren't able to kick on and do a little bit more in this year's tournament. But I think Theo McFarlane was a standout for not only Samoa, but of the forward groups in this year's Rugby World Cup. Great in the set piece, fantastic around the field. We saw him in a lot of breakouts as well for the Samoan team. He was able to get the ball in positions where he was able to break the line and do a great offload, and that's one of the many skill sets that Theo McFarlane has. So those of you that watch rugby in the UK will be familiar with Theo McFarlane because he plays his rugby over there, but he was outstanding for Samoa in this year's Rugby World Cup, and that's why he's made my list of forwards. Now, last one on my list is that talisman from Fiji, yes, Levani Botia, and Botia played a fantastic role in this year's Fijian team at the Rugby World Cup. I thought both, again, as an individual, he scored some fantastic tries, set up some other fantastic tries for Fiji, and was a very, very dynamic leader for this Fijian team around the forward pack on the field. So Levani Botia has made my list of 10 rugby players that I'm considering to nominate one of those as the Rugby Player of the Year in the forwards this year. Okay, the time has come. I'm going to announce who I think is the Rugby Player of the Year for the forwards this year. And boy, it's a difficult task, isn't it? And I'm sure you've probably got some names of forwards that I haven't included in my list, so make sure you put those in the comments. I'll be looking out for those after I post this video. Okay, so the winner of Rugby Player of the Year in the forwards this year for me is Peter Steph-Tutui. I think he had an outstanding Rugby World Cup. He was instrumental as an individual. He played at a very, very high level throughout the Rugby World Cup. In that final against New Zealand, he was instrumental in defence. He was fantastic against Geordie Barrett and keeping him quiet. But he was also magnificent in the breakdown, and he gave South Africa so much emphasis in that area, and that was one of the areas where I think they edged the All Blacks in this year's final. So Peter Steph-Tutui wins my Rugby Player of the Year for the forwards this year. I think he had an outstanding contribution to the South African World Cup team, helping them get over the finish line, but his individual level of play was absolutely outstanding throughout the year. And we can even go back to the Rugby Championship where he played against the All Blacks and was absolutely dynamic in those games as well. So there you go, that's my pick for Rugby Player of the Year this year, Peter Steph-Tutui. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be very interested to see whether you agree with me or not. And if you don't, put down who you think, either from someone on my list or someone I didn't even nominate. Be looking forward to that. Now, I'm going to be back again really soon with my list for the backs, and we'll talk about who I think was the Rugby Player of the Year in the backs this year. Again, those players who were outstanding at this year's Rugby World Cup. So thanks very much for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. If you like my content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Plenty more things coming here on Inside Rugby with Mark, and I'm going to be back again really soon with the rest of this series of videos. Until then, it's time to say adios from Mexico, and I hope you all stay well and stay safe out there, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye for now.